My wife said. You're too sensitive. I was just being honest after crushing my feelings in front of her friends. I said, you're right. I am sensitive to disrespect, and left. 2 hours later, she called me 20 times asking why her cards are not working. Look, I'm not saying I'm a saint. I've got flaws like anyone else. I leave the toilet seat up. I can't parallel park to save my life. And I've been known to eat cereal for dinner on more than one occasion. But I'd argue that none of these minor infractions warrant public execution, especially not over bottomless mimosas and overpriced avocado toast. My name's Julian Cross. I'm 28 years old, and up until about 2 hours ago, I thought my marriage to Tara was pretty solid. Sure, we had our moments. What couple doesn't? But I genuinely believed we were on the same team. Turns out, I've been playing for a team that didn't even know I existed, let alone appreciated my contributions. It was Sunday morning, which meant brunch. Not the casual, pajamas and Netflix kind of Sunday morning I prefer, but the get dressed in clothes that require ironing, go to that hipster place with the exposed brick walls kind of Sunday. Tara insisted we meet up with her friends Bree and Marla at this spot called the Rustic Spoon, which is code for, we're going to charge you $18 for 2 eggs and call it artisanal. Now, Bree and Marla aren't just friends. They're what Tara affectionately calls the Hot Girl Accountability Committee, which apparently means they sit around judging everyone's life choices while pretending their own aren't a complete dumpster fire. Bree's on husband number 2 and already shopping for number 3, and Marla hasn't held down a job longer than a Kardashian marriage, but somehow they've appointed themselves the moral compass of our social circle. We're sitting there in this booth that's clearly designed to make you uncomfortable enough to leave quickly so they can seat the next group of brunch victims, and everything's going fine. I'm working on my Denver omelet, which actually isn't terrible despite costing more than my first car payment. And the conversation's light. Something about a new boutique opening downtown that sells $20 candles that smell like ethereal energy or whatever. Then Bree, who's got this habit of asking loaded questions like she's Barbara Walters, leans forward with this smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes and says, So Julian, what are you planning for your anniversary? It's coming up soon, right? Here's the thing. I had an entire surprise planned. I'd been working on it for 2 months. I'd booked a weekend at this mountain lodge that Tara had been obsessing over since she saw it on some influencer's Instagram feed. The place had everything. A cozy cabin with a fireplace, private hot tub on the deck, wine tasting at a local vineyard, couples massage, the whole 9 yards. I'd even arranged for the lodge to stock her favorite champagne and have fresh flowers waiting in the room. It cost me a small fortune, basically my entire bonus from work, but seeing her face light up was going to be worth every penny. Or so I thought. Before I could even open my mouth to maybe drop a subtle hint or redirect the conversation, Tara laughed. Not a small chuckle, but this full-throated laugh that made the couple at the next table turn around. Oh God, she said, waving her hand dismissively. Julian probably planned something super basic. You know how he is. Last year, he wrote me this letter. Like, an actual handwritten letter. It was cute, I guess. But like, what am I supposed to do with that? I can't exactly post a letter on Instagram, can I? Bree and Marla erupted into laughter like I'd just told them I was planning to propose via a singing telegram dressed as a giant chicken. The waitress, a college kid named Sophie who looked like she wanted to be literally anywhere else, came by to refill our coffee and caught the tail end of it. Even she gave me this sympathetic look that said, Dude, you okay? I tried to keep my cool. I really did. I took a sip of my overpriced coffee and told myself that maybe she was just playing around, trying to be funny in front of her friends. Couples joke around, right? But then Tara decided that wasn't enough. She had to go for the jugular. I mean, look at him, she continued, gesturing at me like I was an exhibit in a museum dedicated to disappointing life choices. Those clothes, Julian, babe, I love you, but you dress like a middle school science teacher. And don't even get me started on the emotional baggage. He's so sensitive about everything. His job, his feelings, his mom's cancer. That's when the entire table went silent. Even Bree, who has the emotional intelligence of a particularly aggressive chihuahua, looked uncomfortable. Marla suddenly became very interested in her phone. A guy at the bar actually stopped mid-sip and stared. My mom had been diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer 6 months ago. She was doing okay. The treatment was working. Her spirits were good. but it had been rough on our family. I'd taken time off work to drive her to appointments, sat with her during chemo sessions, held her hand when she was too weak to hold mine back. Tara knew all of this. She'd been there for some of it, at least physically, though emotionally, she seemed to check out somewhere around the second hospital visit. And now she was using it as punchline material. Tara must have sensed she'd crossed some kind of line because she quickly added, with this grin that didn't match the gravity of what she'd just said. What? I'm just being honest. Honesty is important in a relationship, right? Something snapped inside me. Not in an explosive, throw-the-table kind of way, but more like when you finally accept that the check engine light in your car isn't going to magically turn itself off. I put down my fork very carefully, took one last sip of my coffee, and stood up. You're absolutely right, I said, and my voice came out calmer than I expected. I am sensitive. I'm sensitive to disrespect. I'm sensitive to being used as entertainment for your friends. And I'm especially sensitive to someone using my mother's illness as a comedy bit. Tara's eyes widened slightly, but then she rolled them in that way she does when she thinks I'm being dramatic. Babe, sit down. You're embarrassing yourself. No, I said, pulling out my wallet and dropping enough cash on the table to cover my omelet and leave Sophie a decent tip because God knows she didn't deserve to deal with this drama on a Sunday morning. I'm removing myself from an embarrassing situation. There's a difference. I could feel every eye in the restaurant on me as I walked toward the door. Somewhere behind me, I heard Marlo whisper, "Oh my God," and Bree start to say something, but Tara cut her off with a sharp, "Let him go. He'll be back." But as I pushed open the door and stepped out into the sunshine, breathing in air that didn't smell like betrayal and overpriced brunch, I realized something. I wasn't coming back. Not to that table, not to those fake-ass friends, and maybe not to a marriage where my wife thought publicly eviscerating me was acceptable behavior. I walked to my car, got in, and sat there for a moment. My phone was already buzzing with texts, but I ignored them. Instead, I started the engine and drove home, thinking about how brunch should really come with some kind of hazard pay, and wondering when exactly my wife had decided that loving me was less important than getting likes. The drive home from brunch took about 15 minutes, but it felt like I was traveling through some kind of alternate dimension where everything suddenly made sense. You know that feeling when you've been trying to solve a puzzle for months, and then you step back and realize the picture's been upside down the whole time? Yeah, that. I pulled into our apartment complex. Well, my apartment complex, since my name's the only one on the lease, a fact that's about to become very relevant, and sat in the car for a minute. My phone was still blowing up. 17 texts now, most of them from Tara, a few from Bree trying to play peacemaker like she wasn't literally laughing at me 30 minutes ago, and one from my buddy Marcus that just said, "Bro, you good?" Saw Tara's Instagram story. I didn't even want to know what that said. Instead, I went inside, kicked off my shoes, and did what any rational person does when they're having an existential crisis about their marriage. I made coffee. Not the fancy stuff Tara insists on buying from that place where the baristas have better skincare routines than most dermatologists. Just regular coffee from a regular can, the kind my dad drank every morning before work, the kind that tastes like nostalgia and better decisions. I sat at the kitchen table with my mug, the one that says "World's Okayest Husband," which Tara bought me as a joke, but now feels more like a prophecy, and started thinking about money. Specifically, about where all of mine was going. Here's the thing nobody tells you about relationships. Love might be free, but everything else costs a fortune. And when you're the only one paying, you start to feel less like a partner and more like a personal ATM with emotional investment issues. Let me break down Tara's employment situation for you. She works part-time at a boutique called Lux and Thread, which sounds fancy but is really just an overpriced closet where rich ladies buy clothes they'll wear once before deciding they're so last season. Tara's schedule there is what I'd generously call flexible, and what her manager probably calls whenever she feels like showing up. She works maybe 15 hours a week, and that's being optimistic. Last month, she called in sick 4 times because the lighting was off, or she didn't feel cute enough to sell other people clothing. Her paycheck barely covers her Starbucks habit, let alone anything else. So who picks up the slack? Your boy Julian. That's who. I pay the rent. All of it. $1,200 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment that Tara insisted we needed because she required a creative space for her vision boards and the collection of scented candles she never burns because she doesn't want to ruin them. I pay for the electricity that powers her ring light for Instagram photos. I pay for the internet so she can stream reality TV shows about people whose lives are messier than ours, which I previously thought was impossible. The car? Mine. I'm making payments on a Honda Accord that she drives more than I do because my job is remote and hers is only 20 minutes away, babe, and Uber's so expensive. Her phone? On my plan. Her credit cards? She's an authorized user on 2 of them, which she maxed out buying God knows what. Probably more candles. Definitely more brunch. And let's not forget the maintenance costs. The hair appointments every 6 weeks at a salon where they serve champagne and charge $300 for what's essentially a trim and some highlights. The eyelash extensions that cost $150 a month and make her look like she's perpetually surprised. The nails, always acrylic, always elaborate, always needing fills every 2 weeks. The gym membership she uses maybe twice a month, and only on days when her workout outfit matches. I'm not saying I kept a running total or anything, but sitting there with my coffee, doing some quick mental math, I estimated I'd spent somewhere north of $40,000 on Tara over the past 2 years. $40,000. That's a down payment on a house. That's a really nice car. That's 800 trips to the actual good brunch place across town that doesn't make you feel like you're eating in a Pinterest board come to life. And what did I get in return? Public humiliation and a wife who thought my handwritten anniversary letter was too basic to acknowledge. So I decided something sitting there at that table. Peace is expensive, but it's still cheaper than funding my own disrespect. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. First up, Capital One. Hi. Yes, I need to remove an authorized user from my account. The customer service rep, a guy named Brandon who sounded like he was reading from a script written by robots, asked if everything was okay. Everything's great, I said. I'm just simplifying my life. You know, Marie Kondo NG my finances. This person no longer sparks joy. Brandon chuckled at that one. 15 minutes later, Tara was no longer authorized to spend money she didn't earn. Next, Chase. Same deal. The rep there was less chatty, which I appreciated. Is the authorized user deceased? She asked. No, I said. Just financially expired. She paused, probably trying to figure out if that was a real banking term, then processed the request. Then I called Verizon. I need to remove a line from my family plan. The representative, a woman named Crystal who had that customer service voice that's somehow both cheerful and dead inside, asked which line. I gave her Tara's number. And will that line holder be starting their own plan? That's between her and her next sponsor, I said. Crystal definitely suppressed a laugh. But I wasn't done. I logged into Netflix and changed the password. Then Disney Plus. Then Hulu. Then Amazon Prime. I even canceled her Spotify Premium, which honestly felt petty, but you know what? Pettiness is underrated. Let her listen to ads between her Taylor Swift breakup songs. Consider it character building. The entire process took maybe an hour and a half. 1 hour and 30 minutes to financially disentangle myself from someone who'd spent 2 years draining my bank account and, apparently, my dignity. I made myself a sandwich, just turkey and cheese, nothing fancy, because I'm basic like that, and settled onto the couch with my laptop to catch up on some work emails. It was peaceful, quiet, no reality TV blaring in the background, no requests to just quickly run to Target for something that would inevitably cost $80. Just me, my sandwich, and the sound of my own thoughts, which were remarkably positive considering I'd just blown up my marriage over brunch. Around 2:30, my phone started buzzing. Not texts this time, calls. One after another, all from Tara. I let them all go to voicemail. Then came the texts. Why is my card not working? Julian, answer your phone. This is so immature. I'm literally at Sephora and my card got declined. Call me now? I looked at that last message and smiled. Smiled in a way I hadn't smiled in months, maybe years. It was the smile of a man who'd finally figured out that sometimes the best response to dishonesty isn't confrontation, it's consequences. I typed back one message. Guess honesty really is the best policy. Then I turned off my phone and took a nap. Best sleep I'd had in ages. The nap was glorious. I'm talking full REM cycle, drool on the pillow, wake up confused about what date is kind of sleep. The kind of rest you can only achieve when you've finally done something you should have done months ago, but were too scared to pull the trigger on. When I woke up, it was almost 4 in the afternoon, and for a blissful 30 seconds, I forgot about the entire brunch situation. Then I heard the key in the lock. Now, I've seen Tara mad before. There was the time Starbucks got her order wrong, and she made the barista remake it 3 times. There was the incident when her Instagram post only got 80 likes instead of her usual 100 plus, and she declared social media rigged against authentic voices. There was even that time I accidentally washed her favorite sweater, the one that cost more than my monthly car payment, on the wrong cycle, and it shrunk to toddler size. But this was different. This was biblical. This was Old Testament, pillar of salt, plague of locusts level fury. The door slammed open so hard I'm pretty sure our neighbor Mr. Peterson's cat had a heart attack. Tara stood in the doorway like she was auditioning for a role in a disaster movie. And let me tell you, she was fully committed to the part. Her hair was doing this wind-blown thing, even though there was no wind. Her mascara had that artful smudge that suggested tears, but also Instagram filter. And she was clutching her phone like it was the only evidence that could convict me of crimes against her lifestyle. "What did you do?" she shrieked. And I'm not exaggerating when I say dogs 3 blocks away probably started barking. I was still on the couch, rubbing sleep out of my eyes. Probably had pillow creases on my face. Definitely looked like someone who'd just woken up from the best nap of his life. "Hey babe," I said casually. "How was Sephora?" Wrong thing to say. I knew it immediately, but honestly, I didn't care. "Don't hey babe me." She stormed into the living room, threw her purse on the chair, the expensive one I bought her for her birthday that she said was cute but not really her style, and stood over me like a lawyer about to deliver a closing argument. "You cut off my cards. My phone. What the hell is wrong with you?" I sat up slowly, took my time stretching, maybe yawned a little for dramatic effect. "Oh, that. Yeah, I took your advice from brunch." Her face did this thing where confusion and rage tried to occupy the same expression. It was like watching 2 apps crash on a phone simultaneously. "What advice?" "I didn't give you any advice." "Sure you did. You said I'm too sensitive, right? That I have too much emotional baggage. That I'm basic." I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and started making another cup of coffee because this conversation was clearly going to require caffeine. So I decided to remove the things that hurt my feelings. Like, for example, funding someone who thinks I'm a walking disappointment but somehow still wants access to my bank account. I could hear her breathing heavily behind me. That sharp inhale-exhale thing she does when she's trying to maintain composure, but is approximately 3 seconds from a full meltdown. "You cancel my phone? My cards? Julian, I have a life." I turned around, leaned against the counter, and took a sip of my coffee. It was still too hot, burned my tongue a little, but I maintained eye contact because power moves require commitment. "You do have a life. I'm just no longer financing it. I have a facial appointment tomorrow," she yelled, like this was somehow the most pressing humanitarian crisis of our time. "Do you know how hard it is to get an appointment with Svetlana? She's booked out for months." "Oh good," I said. Maybe while she's doing the facial, Svetlana can also peel off the entitlement. I hear it clogs pores. Tara's mouth literally fell open. I'd never talked to her like this before. In 2 years of dating and 1 year of marriage, I'd been the accommodating one, the peacekeeper, the guy who apologized even when I wasn't sure what I was apologizing for. But something about having my mother's cancer used as brunch entertainment had fundamentally rewired my give-a-damn meter. "You can't just cut me off," she sputtered. "We're married." "Yes, we are," I agreed. "And in a marriage, partners typically contribute. They show respect. They don't publicly eviscerate each other for Instagram engagement." I set down my coffee mug. "But here's the thing, Tara, you're not my partner. You're my dependent. And I'm tired of being your personal ATM and emotional punching bag." She tried a different tactic then, the one I'd seen her use 100 times before when direct confrontation wasn't working. Her eyes got softer, her voice dropped to that little girl register that used to make me melt. "Julian, baby, I'm sorry about brunch. I was just joking around with the girls. You know I didn't mean any of that stuff." "Really? Which part didn't you mean? The part where you mocked my gift? The part where you insulted my clothes? Or the part where you weaponized my dying mother for laughs?" "She's not dying. She has cancer, Tara." My voice came out louder than I intended. Mr. Peterson was definitely going to complain about the noise. Stage 2 breast cancer. "And you know what I was doing while you were at Sephora getting your card declined?" I was supposed to be picking up her medication. But instead, I had to deal with the fallout from your little comedy routine. That was actually a lie. I wasn't supposed to pick up my mom's medication until Wednesday. But Tara didn't know that, and honestly, the emotional truth of it felt more important than the factual truth. She started crying then. Real tears this time, not the Instagram-ready kind. You're just going to abandon me? What am I supposed to do? Get a full-time job? I suggested. Open your own phone account. Learn what decline means and how to avoid it. You know, adult stuff. I can't afford an apartment on my own. Then I guess you should have thought about that before you decided to roast me like a marshmallow at a campfire in front of your friends. She was full-on sobbing now, the kind of crying that makes your whole body shake. Part of me, the old Julian, the sensitive one she'd spent months mocking, wanted to comfort her. But a newer, louder part of me recognized this for what it was, manipulation. The same tactic she'd used when I suggested she maybe cut back on the online shopping. The same performance she'd delivered when I asked her to contribute to groceries. I'm giving you 30 days, I said quietly. That's more than fair. It gives you time to figure things out, find a roommate, whatever you need to do. 30 days. She looked at me like I'd just told her she had to move to Mars. Where am I supposed to go? That's not really my problem anymore, is it? I walked past her toward the bedroom. You made it very clear at brunch that I'm basic, boring, and emotionally damaged. So, I'm doing you a favor. Now you can find someone who meets your standards. Someone who isn't too sensitive to fund your lifestyle while you mock him publicly. Julian, please. I stopped at the bedroom door and turned back. She looked small suddenly, standing there in our living room. My living room, with mascara running down her face and her phone clutched in her hand like a security blanket. You know what the sad part is? I said, I really loved you. Like, genuinely, completely loved you. I would have done anything for you. I was doing everything for you. But love isn't supposed to feel like slowly going bankrupt while someone tells you you're not good enough. I went into the bedroom and closed the door. Behind it, I could hear her crying, then yelling, then eventually the sound of her calling someone, probably Bree or Marla, looking for sympathy from the same people who'd laughed along with her just hours ago. I lay down on the bed and stared at the ceiling, feeling a weird mixture of sadness and relief. Sadness for what I thought we had. Relief that I was finally choosing myself. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Need a beer? I smiled. Make it 2. I met Marcus at O'Malley's, this dive bar 3 blocks from my apartment that smells like beer and bad decisions, but serves both cheaply and without judgment. Marcus has been my best friend since college, back when we were both idiots who thought ramen was a food group and that we'd figured out life because we could do our own laundry. He's a graphic designer now, works from home like me, and has the kind of beard that makes him look like he either knows how to fix a car or start a cult. No in between. He was already there when I arrived. 2 beers on the table, and the look on his face told me he'd already seen whatever digital carnage Tara had unleashed. Bro, he said as I slid into the booth, you gotta see this. Do I though? I picked up my beer and took a long drink. Because I feel like whatever this is, it's going to raise my blood pressure, and I've had enough cardiovascular excitement for one day. Marcus turned his phone around, and there it was, Tara's Instagram story. Not just 1 slide. Not even 5 slides. 15. 15 slides of what I can only describe as a masterclass in victimhood and creative fiction. The first slide was a black screen with white text in that font everyone uses when they want to seem deep. Financial abuse is real broken heart. Already off to a great start. Very subtle. Very honest. Slide 2. A photo of her crying. Clearly taken multiple times based on the slightly different angles in her camera roll that I could see in the screenshot. With the caption, when the person you trusted most uses money as a weapon. Slide 3 through 7. A detailed breakdown of how I was a manipulative narcissist who had isolated her financially and left her with nothing despite her contributing equally to the relationship. This was particularly creative since her last paycheck was probably still sitting in her bank account, untouched, because why would she spend her own money when mine was available? Slide 8 featured a poll. Is financial abuse a form of domestic violence? With options for absolutely and 100% yes. Real balanced options there. Very journalistic. Slides 9 through 12. Screenshots of what appeared to be articles about financial abuse. Actual serious articles about actual serious problems. which she'd co-opted for her narrative about how canceling someone's Spotify premium after they publicly humiliated you is basically the same thing as actual abuse. The last 3 slides were her call to action. If you've experienced this, you're not alone. Drop a broken heart in the comments. We need to talk about this more. She got over 300 comments, Marcus said, scrolling through them. Most of them are supportive. Lots of "you deserve better" queen energy. Some men are trash thrown in there for good measure. I put my head in my hands. This is insane. She literally mocked me in public, and now I'm the villain because I stopped paying her bills. Wait, it gets better, Marcus said, and I could hear the grin in his voice. Or worse. Depends on your perspective. He scrolled to the comments and zoomed in on one from Bree. I had to read it twice to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Girl, you roasted him at brunch. Don't rewrite history. Oh my God, I breathed. It gets better, Marcus repeated. Check the replies. Under Bree's comment was a war zone. Half the people were attacking Bree for not supporting women and victim blaming. The other half were asking what happened at brunch. And then, beautiful, glorious karma. Someone had posted screenshots. Screenshots of Tara's own Instagram story from that morning, the one she'd posted before brunch, where she'd literally written, "Sunday fun day with my girls. Time to spill tea hot beverage," with a bunch of laughing emojis. The narrative was unraveling faster than a cheap sweater, and I was here for it. The internet is undefeated, Marcus said, raising his beer. You can't gaslight the timeline when the timeline is literally time-stamped. We clinked bottles, and for the first time since that disastrous brunch, I actually laughed. Really laughed. The kind of laugh that comes from somewhere deep in your chest and feels like releasing pressure you didn't know you were holding. My phone buzzed then. A DM notification on Instagram from someone named Liam Torres. The name sounded vaguely familiar, like someone Tara had mentioned in passing, but I couldn't quite place it. I opened it. Bro, welcome to the club. She told everyone I was too emotional too, after I paid her tuition. I stared at the message. Marcus, who's Liam Torres? Marcus looked up from his phone. Tara's ex before you? Tall dude, used to play basketball? I think you met him once at that party last year. The one where you had to leave early because Tara said the vibe was off. Oh, now I remembered. Tara had mentioned Liam exactly once, and only to tell me he was emotionally unavailable and couldn't handle a real woman. Classic. I typed back. You still got the receipt? The reply came back almost immediately. Sure do. And therapy bills. Then another message. She cheated on me with some dude from her gym, then told everyone I was controlling because I asked her to contribute to rent. We dated for 3 years. I paid for everything. Her car, her credit cards, even her student loans. The day I asked her to get a full-time job instead of part-time, she told all our friends I was financially abusing her. I felt like I'd just found out I was in a horror movie franchise and everyone had been trying to warn me, but I kept walking into the dark basement anyway. She's got a pattern, Liam continued. Find a guy with a stable job and a good heart. Drain him dry while telling him he's lucky to have her. The second he stands up for himself, she flips the script and plays victim. I'm guessing she humiliated you publicly. You finally had enough, and now you're the bad guy? Are you psychic or just experienced? I wrote back. Experienced. 3 years of therapy experienced. But hey, I got a great therapist out of it. Her name's Dr. Chun. I can send you her info if you want. I was about to respond when my phone started ringing. Not Tara this time. Her mom, Kathy. Now, Kathy's always been decent to me. She's one of those moms who clearly loves her daughter, but also isn't blind to her flaws. She once told me at Thanksgiving that Tara got her expensive taste from her father and her selective memory from him too, which I thought was just a joke until right now. I answered, Hey, Kathy. Julian, honey, what happened? She sounded tired. Not angry, just exhausted in the way parents of difficult children always sound. Tara called me crying, saying you kicked her out and cut her off. I took a deep breath. Your daughter mistook disrespect for honesty. She publicly humiliated me at brunch this morning, made fun of my clothes, my feelings, even my mom's cancer, in front of her friends. So I stopped paying for her lifestyle. That's it. That's the whole story. There was a long pause. She mentioned your mother's cancer? Julian, I'm so sorry. How is your mom doing? She's okay. Thank you for asking. Treatment's going well. Another pause. And Tara made jokes about it. In front of her friends. For laughs. I heard Kathy sigh, long and heavy. Oh, Julian. I'm so sorry. That's awful. Another pause. So she's still like her father then. I'm sorry. Her father did the same thing. Thought cruelty was the same as honesty. Thought if he framed it as just telling it like it is, he could say whatever he wanted without consequences. I divorced him when Tara was 12. Best decision I ever made, even though it was hard. She sighed again. I'd hoped she wouldn't pick up his habits. I guess I was wrong. We talked for a few more minutes. She apologized again, told me she understood my decision, and said if I ever needed anything to call her. You're a good man, Julian. Don't let her convince you otherwise. When I hung up, Marcus was watching me with raised eyebrows. Her own mom's on your side? Apparently. He shook his head and finished his beer. Man, when even your mother-in-law thinks you're right, you know you made the correct call. We ordered another round. And another. And somewhere around beer number 4, my phone lit up with notifications. Tara's Instagram story was getting ratioed. People were sharing the screenshots, calling out the inconsistencies, asking hard questions she couldn't answer without admitting the truth. The court of public opinion had rendered its verdict, and for once, it was in my favor. The next few days were, to put it mildly, entertaining. Not for me directly. I was actually having a pretty chill time, catching up on work, finally finishing that show everyone had been telling me to watch for 6 months, eating meals that didn't require a second mortgage to afford. But watching Tara's world crumble from a safe distance? That was better than any streaming service could offer. Day 1 after the Instagram debacle, she moved in with Bree. I know this because Bree posted a story with the caption, "Real friends show up when it matters 2 hearts," over a photo of them drinking wine, which seemed to be Bree's solution to every problem. Breakup? Wine. Bad day at work? Wine. Tuesday? Believe it or not, also wine. Day 2, Tara started experiencing what I like to call the awakening. See, when you've been coasting on someone else's dime for years, you forget that the real world has things like credit scores and security deposits, and the radical concept of having to prove you can pay for things before people give them to you. I found out about this through Marcus, who heard it from his girlfriend Keisha, who heard it from her coworker Dana, who happened to be friends with Marla. The gossip chain was more efficient than the postal service, and honestly, more reliable too. Apparently, Tara had waltzed into a Verizon store to set up her own phone plan, full of confidence, probably expecting them to just hand her the latest iPhone like she was some kind of telecommunications royalty. Instead, the guy behind the counter, probably named Derek or Kyle, they're always named Derek or Kyle, ran her credit and came back with news that popped her bubble faster than a cheap balloon at a kid's birthday party. Ma'am, we're going to need a $400 security deposit. $400. For context, Tara's checking account probably had about $200 in it, and that's being generous. The boutique where she worked paid her basically nothing, and what little she did make usually went toward her daily Starbucks run and whatever impulse purchase caught her eye on Instagram at 2 in the morning. She called me, of course. At 11:30 on a Tuesday morning while I was in the middle of a work meeting, my phone started buzzing like an angry hornet. I declined the call. She called again. Declined. Third time, I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and made a mental note to block her number during lunch. The voicemail she left was, and I'm not exaggerating here, 8 minutes long. 8 minutes. She could have recorded a podcast episode. The highlights included her crying about how she couldn't get approved for a phone plan, how this was so embarrassing, how the Verizon guy looked at her like she was poor, and how I was ruining her life by not being her financial safety net anymore. The irony of her calling me to complain about not having a phone, using the phone that I was still technically paying for until the end of the billing cycle, was apparently lost on her. But the phone wasn't even the best part. Oh no. The best part was when she tried to apply for her own credit card. I learned about this from an unexpected source. Kevin, a guy I went to college with who now worked at a bank downtown. He sent me a text that just said, "Dude, did your wife just apply for a credit card?" Turns out, when Tara applied, she listed me as a reference, probably thinking it would help her case. And they called him to verify some information because we'd had a joint account there years ago that I'd closed. Kevin, being a good friend and also someone who enjoys drama more than he probably should, told me she'd been denied. Her credit score's in the toilet, man, Kevin texted. Like, even the predatory payday loan places are going to think twice bad. How did it get that low? I didn't have an answer, but I had a theory. Minimum payments, late payments, and a fundamentally broken understanding of how money works when you're the one who has to pay it back. She tried 3 more credit cards over the next week. Capital One, denied. Discover, denied. A store card at Target that basically approves anyone with a pulse, denied. The universe was finally holding Tara accountable, and it wasn't taking her Instagram stories as payment. Meanwhile, she was still crashing at Bree's place, which I knew couldn't last. Bree's apartment was a 1-bedroom that she could barely afford, and while she loved playing the supportive friend role on social media, actually having a roommate who contributed nothing financially or emotionally was probably wearing thin. I was proved right exactly 9 days later when Marla let it slip, again through the gossip chain, that Bree had given Tara an ultimatum: find a place by the end of the month or start paying half my rent. Tara's response, according to Marla, was to look at apartment listings and discover what everyone who's ever lived independently knows. Housing is expensive, landlords want proof of income, and my ex-husband used to pay for everything doesn't count as a job reference. Every apartment she looked at wanted the same thing: first month's rent, last month's rent, security deposit, proof of employment, credit check, references. She had exactly none of these things in any meaningful capacity. The boutique job wasn't enough to qualify for even the sketchiest studio apartment in the bad part of town. Her credit was trashed, and her references were either me. Yeah, that wasn't going to be a glowing recommendation, or her friends who were slowly realizing that knowing Tara came with a price tag they weren't willing to pay. But here's where it gets really good. About 2 weeks after the brunch incident, I was scrolling through Instagram. Don't judge me. Everyone hate watches their ex's social media, and I saw that Tara had posted a photo with a new guy. His name was Dylan. I know this because his handle was at Dylan Fitness Warrior, which should tell you everything you need to know about him. But I'll elaborate anyway, because this guy was a walking red flag factory. Dylan was a fitness influencer, which is what people call themselves when they work out a lot, take shirtless mirror selfies, and don't have an actual job. His Instagram was full of inspirational quotes superimposed over pictures of his abs, posts about the grind never stops, and videos of him doing workouts in public parks that definitely violated at least 3 city ordinances. He drove a 2004 Honda Civic with a spoiler, had tribal tattoos that probably seemed like a good idea in 2008, and based on his posts, lived in what appeared to be his friend's garage-turned-studio apartment. The guy's idea of a fancy date was protein shakes at the beach. Tara captioned the photo: "New chapter, new energy, butterfly sparkles. Some people are just on a different frequency." Marcus sent me the screenshot with one word: "Lamayo." I responded: "From software engineer to unemployed influencer. She's really raising her standards." Bro, his last post was literally just cop these protein bars, about to get shredded. In what world is that better than you? In a world where I had the audacity to expect mutual respect, Keisha jumped into the group chat. "Y'all are messy. I love it." Also, I looked at his profile. This man has 847 followers and thinks he's the rock. The delusion is strong. The relationship made sense in a twisted way. Tara couldn't afford her lifestyle anymore, so she downgraded to someone who couldn't afford a lifestyle at all. Dylan probably thought he hit the jackpot. A girl who looked good in photos and could maybe help him break 1,000 followers. She probably thought she was making me jealous, proving she could move on, showing everyone she didn't need my money. Meanwhile, Dylan's entire existence was financed by protein powder sponsorships that paid him in free samples and motivational quote templates. I should have felt something seeing that photo. Jealousy, maybe. Anger. Regret. But instead, I felt relief. The kind of deep, existential relief you feel when you realize you're not crazy. The relationship really was that bad, and you made the right call. I texted my mom, who was doing great. By the way, treatment was working, hair was growing back, and told her I loved her. She texted back, "Love you too, honey. Proud of you." And somehow, that meant more than any Instagram post ever could. Here's something Tara didn't know, and honestly, something I'd been keeping close to my chest like a secret weapon I hoped I'd never have to use. I'd been planning to propose. Yeah, plot twist, right? About 3 months before the brunch catastrophe, I'd gone to a jewelry store downtown called Berkshire & Sons. It's one of those old-school places that's been around since the 1950s, the kind where they know your grandfather's name and probably sold him his wedding ring back when gas cost a quarter. The owner, Harvey, was this 60-something guy with reading glasses perpetually perched on his nose and the demeanor of someone who'd seen every relationship drama play out at least twice. I'd spent weeks researching the perfect ring. White gold band, princess cut diamond, 1 carat, nothing too flashy, but definitely not cheap either. I'd looked at her Pinterest boards. Yes, she had multiple Pinterest boards dedicated to engagement rings, which should have been my first red flag, and tried to match what she'd been dreaming about. $8,000. That's what I paid. $8,000 for a ring I'd planned to use to ask someone to spend forever with me. Someone who apparently thought I was basic and boring and too emotionally damaged to deserve basic human decency. After everything went down, after the financial exorcism and the Instagram warfare and Dylan the fitness warrior entered the picture, I realized I needed to do something about that ring. It was sitting in my sock drawer like a tiny, expensive reminder of my own stupidity, and every time I saw it, I felt like an idiot. So I went back to Berkshire & Sons on a Thursday afternoon, ring box in my jacket pocket, feeling like a divorced dad returning Christmas presents on December 26th. Harvey looked up when I walked in, and I swear I saw a recognition flash across his face before I even said anything. "Mr. Cross," he said, in that gentle way jewelers probably learn in some secret training about how to handle broken engagements. "How can I help you today?" I put the box on the counter. "I need to return this." He opened it, examined the ring like he was greeting an old friend, then looked back at me. Cold feet. "More like dodged a scam," I said. Harvey did this thing where he took off his glasses, cleaned them with a small cloth he kept in his shirt pocket, put them back on, and studied me. "You mind if I ask what happened? You seemed so sure when you bought it." I gave him the abbreviated version. Public humiliation, financial exploitation, the whole greatest hits album. He nodded along like he'd heard variations of this story 1,000 times. "I'm sorry," he said when I finished. "That's rough. You seem like a good kid." "Thanks. So, about that return policy." "Wait," Harvey interrupted, holding up one finger. "Before we process this, I need to tell you something." He pulled out a ledger, an actual physical ledger, because apparently this place still operated like it was 1975, and flipped through some pages. "Is your fiancée's name Tara?" My stomach dropped. "Was." "And yeah, why?" Harvey tapped the ledger. "Because she came in here about 6 weeks ago." The air in that jewelry store suddenly felt very thin. "She what?" "Came in asking about this ring specifically. Said her boyfriend, you, I'm assuming, was planning to propose, and she wanted to know if she could upgrade the center stone after the engagement." He looked at me over his glasses. "She said the current stone was, and I quote, too humble." I just stared at him. My brain was trying to process this information, but kept hitting error messages. Too humble. Her exact words. She wanted to know if she could swap it for a 2-carat stone, maybe add some additional diamonds on the band. Would have run you another 7,000. Harvey closed the ledger. I told her that modifications like that needed to come from the purchaser, not the recipient. She seemed disappointed. How did she even know about the ring? Harvey shrugged. "That, I can't tell you. Maybe she saw a receipt? Your browser history? But she definitely knew." I felt something shift in my chest. It wasn't heartbreak. I was past that. It was more like the final confirmation that leaving had been the right choice. She hadn't just been ungrateful about gifts I'd already given her. She'd been pre-planning her disappointment about gifts I hadn't even given yet. "So," Harvey said, pulling out some paperwork about that return. "Store policy is usually no refunds on custom pieces, but given the circumstances, and the fact that your ex tried to upgrade your proposal ring before you even proposed, I'm going to make an exception." 20 minutes later, I walked out of Berkshire & Sons with a check for $8,000 and a bottle of champagne Harvey insisted I take. "Congrats on your freedom," he'd said, shaking my hand. "Best investment you never made." I sat in my car, looked at the check, and started laughing. The kind of laugh that's part relief, part disbelief, and completely unhinged. Tara had been planning to modify my proposal before I even made it. She'd literally taken "it's the thought that counts" and said, "Yeah, but also the carat size." I drove home, opened that champagne, and toasted to the universe for showing me who she really was before I made the biggest mistake of my life. 3 days after the ring incident, I woke up to an email that made me question whether I was still asleep and having some kind of fever dream. The subject line read, Urgent legal notice. Respond within 48 hours. Now, I've gotten threatening emails before. Usually they're from Nigerian princes or someone claiming to be the IRS demanding payment in iTunes gift cards. But this one was special because it came from an email address that read justicewarriorlawfirm@gmail.com. Let me repeat that. Gmail. Not even a professional domain. Just a regular Gmail account. Probably set up 5 minutes before they sent the email, like someone watched half an episode of Suits and thought, yeah, I could do that. The email was spectacular in its incompetence. It claimed that I had engaged in financial abuse, emotional terrorism, and willful abandonment, and that Tara was entitled to $50,000 in damages for pain and suffering. 50,000. The number was just sitting there in the email, bold and underlined, like emphasis would make it more legitimate. But here's the best part. The entire thing was typed in Comic Sans. Comic Sans, the font that even kindergarten teachers abandoned in 2005. This legal threat, this document that was supposed to intimidate me into emptying my bank account, looked like a birthday party invitation from 1997. I took a screenshot and sent it to my cousin Derek, who's an actual lawyer at an actual law firm with an actual domain name that ends in .com like a professional. He called me back within 5 minutes, and I could hear him wheezing with laughter before he even said hello. Julian, he gasped between laughs. This is the funniest thing I've seen all year. Where did she find these people? Craigslist. Honestly, probably. Derek composed himself enough to speak in complete sentences. Okay, first of all, no real law firm uses Gmail. Second, emotional terrorism isn't a legal term. Third, even if she had a case, which she doesn't, you can't just email someone a random number and expect them to pay. That's not how any of this works. So I shouldn't be worried. The only thing you should be worried about is whether to frame this or just save it for parties. This is comedy gold. He paused. Actually, forward it to me. I want to show it to my partners. We need a good laugh. I did not pay the $50,000. Shocking, I know. But the legal cosplay wasn't even the most entertaining development. Oh no, because 2 days after the fake lawsuit email, Tara's parents got involved. Her dad, Richard, called me. Now, Richard and I had always had a cordial relationship based entirely on the fact that we both enjoyed watching football and pretending Tara's spending habits weren't concerning. He was a retired accountant, which made his next offer particularly hilarious. Julian, he said, his voice tired in that way that suggested he'd been dealing with Tara's drama for approximately 27 years. I'm going to be straight with you. I'll give you $1,000 a month if you take her back. I actually pulled the phone away from my ear and looked at it, just to make sure I'd heard correctly. I'm sorry, what? $8,000 a month. Cash. No questions asked. I'll Venmo you, PayPal, whatever you want. Just, please. Your mother-in-law and I can't take it anymore. She's been living in our guest room for 3 days, and she's already redecorated it twice and complained about the water pressure 17 times. Mr. Peterson. Richard, please. I feel like we're past formalities at this point. Richard, with all due respect, that's not rent for an apartment. That's compensation for trauma. There was a long pause, then a heavy sigh. Yeah, you're right. Can't blame you for trying, though. Another pause. For what it's worth, Kathy and I don't blame you. We tried our best with her, but somewhere along the way, he trailed off, and I could hear Tara yelling something in the background about organic almond milk. I appreciate that, I said. Really, but I think I'm good. Can't blame a man for trying to buy his sanity back, Richard said. Good luck, Julian. You're a good kid. Don't let her convince you otherwise. After we hung up, I sat there thinking about the absurdity of it all. Her own father was willing to pay me a monthly salary to deal with her. That wasn't just a red flag. That was a red banner being flown by a plane with "abort mission" written on the side. Marcus came over that night, and I showed him both the fake legal email and told him about Richard's offer. He laughed so hard, he actually fell off my couch. Bro, he said, wiping tears from his eyes, her dad tried to bribe you with a monthly retainer. Do you understand how bad you have to be for your own father to offer someone money to tolerate you? Pretty bad, apparently. This is like sitcom-level dysfunction. This is the kind of stuff that happens to characters, not real people. But it was real. All of it. And somehow I'd escaped. You know how they say rock bottom has a basement? Well, Tara found a sub-basement, then started digging. About 3 weeks after she moved into her parents' guest room, which, according to Richard's increasingly desperate text updates, was going about as well as a vegan at a steakhouse, Tara decided to pivot her entire life strategy. And by pivot, I mean she joined a sugar baby website. I found out about this through Bree, of all people. She sent me screenshots at 2 in the morning with a message that just said, "I'm sorry, but you need to see this," followed by 3 skull emojis, which I think was her way of saying, "This is so bad I've died from secondhand embarrassment." The website was called Luxury Connections, or something equally ridiculous. One of those platforms that tries to make transactional relationships sound sophisticated by using words like mutually beneficial arrangements and upscale companionship. Basically, it's where people who don't want to admit they're on a sugar baby site go to be on a sugar baby site. Tara's profile was a masterpiece of delusion. Her username was ClassyTara27, which already felt like false advertising, but her bio was where things really took off into the stratosphere of absurdity. Classy woman seeking generous gentleman. Well-educated, sophisticated, and cultured. Recently relocated and temporarily between luxury accommodations. Looking for someone who appreciates the finer things in life and knows how to treat a queen. Must be financially secure and emotionally mature. No games, no drama. I read it 3 times. Each time it got funnier. Temporarily between luxury accommodations was doing some serious heavy lifting. That's like calling unemployment freelance relaxation or saying you got fired because you're exploring new opportunities. She was living in her parents' guest room and arguing with her dad about why the house didn't have oat milk in the fridge. That's not between luxury accommodations. That's just homeless with family benefits. But the photos were what really sent me. She'd clearly rated her entire wardrobe, the one I paid for, and staged a photo shoot in what appeared to be 5 different locations around town. There was Tara at a wine bar, holding a glass and looking pensively into the distance. Tara at the beach in a sundress, wind in her hair like she was auditioning for a Nicholas Sparks movie. Tara in front of some fancy hotel she definitely wasn't staying at, pretending she'd just walked out of the lobby. The comments section on her profile was visible to friends, a design flaw Tara had apparently not considered, and they were absolutely brutal. Like, someone call the fire department because she just got burned brutal. One guy with the username investor_Mike wrote, "How you gonna be between luxury accommodations but your location says you're in a suburban neighborhood? I can see a minivan in your background photo, sweetheart." Another one, "Girl, if you can't afford Uber, you're not luxury, you're luggage." That one made me snort coffee through my nose. Luggage. I had to give it to anonymous internet strangers. They really knew how to cut through the nonsense. Someone else commented, "Your profile says no drama, but your energy screams drama." Pass. But my favorite was from a woman. Not even a potential sugar daddy. Just some lady who apparently cruised these sites for entertainment, who wrote an entire paragraph. "Honey, I've seen your type before. You want someone to fund your lifestyle, but you bring nothing to the table except demands and attitude. Real sugar babies are professionals. They understand it's a job. You understand it's an entitlement program. Good luck, but also, maybe consider getting an actual job." That comment had 43 likes. On her own profile. The ratio was devastating. I should probably feel bad about how much joy this brought me, but I'm only human, and this human had spent 2 years being an ATM with feelings. But wait, it gets better. Marla, remember Marla? Part of the Hot Girl Accountability Committee, Bree's partner in enabling terrible behavior, sent me a DM 3 days later. Not to defend Tara, not to call me names, but to apologize. "Hey Julian," the message started. "I know this is weird, but I need to say something. You were right. Tara is exhausting. She's been staying with Bree, and Bree called me crying yesterday because Tara maxed out her credit card ordering DoorDash and said she'd pay her back soon. She's not going to pay her back. We both know it." The message continued, "I'm sorry we laughed at you at brunch. Looking back, you were trying to do something nice, and she's always been like this. We just didn't want to see it because it was easier to go along with it. But watching her implode over the past few weeks, you did the right thing. You seem like a genuinely good dude, and she took advantage of that. So yeah, I'm sorry." I stared at that message for a solid 5 minutes. An apology from someone in Tara's inner circle. Someone who'd been there for the public execution and had laughed along. It felt like finding a $20 bill in an old jacket. Unexpected and oddly validating. I wrote back, "Thanks, Marla. That means a lot. For what it's worth, I don't blame you. She's good at making people think she's the victim. She's better at that than anything else, Marla replied, including being a friend. Over the next week, I got 2 more messages. One from a girl named Ashley who worked at the boutique with Tara, telling me they'd had to let her go because she'd been showing up late and spending most of her shifts taking selfies in the fitting room. Another from Dana, Keisha's co-worker who knew Marla, just checking in and saying she hoped I was doing okay because that whole situation seemed messy. The Greek chorus of people who'd witnessed Tara's trajectory was starting to sing the same tune, and it wasn't the one she'd been posting on Instagram. Meanwhile, I was actually thriving. And I don't mean that in the toxic, living my best life to make my ex jealous way. I mean I was genuinely doing better. I started going to therapy, not because I was falling apart, but because I wanted to make sure I didn't carry Tara's damage into whatever came next. My therapist, Dr. Chun. Yes, the same one Liam had recommended. And yes, she was amazing. Helped me understand that being kind doesn't mean being a doormat, and that self-respect isn't selfish. I took a cooking class at this place downtown called Culinary Adventures, where a chef named Marco taught 12 strangers how to make pasta from scratch. Turns out, I'm actually pretty good at it. There's something therapeutic about kneading dough and rolling it thin, about creating something from nothing that people actually enjoy. I started sleeping through the night. No more waking up at 3 a.m. to the sound of Tara watching TikToks at full volume. No more anxiety dreams about credit card bills. No more walking on eggshells wondering what would set her off. Just solid, peaceful, uninterrupted sleep. The kind of sleep you get when you've finally deleted malware from your life and installed some decent antivirus software in the form of boundaries. My apartment stayed clean because I was the only one living in it. The fridge had food in it that I actually ate instead of expensive organic products that would go bad because Tara bought them for aesthetics, not consumption. I started going to the gym again. Not to get revenge abs or whatever, just because I had the energy and motivation to do things I enjoyed. Marcus noticed the change. "Dude, you seem lighter," he said one night when we were playing video games at my place. Like, not weight-wise, but emotionally. You're not carrying that stress anymore. He was right. I'd spent so long thinking I was the problem, too sensitive, too boring, too basic, that I'd forgotten what it felt like to just exist without constantly defending my right to be treated with respect. My mom noticed too. "You sound happy," she said during one of our weekly calls. Her hair was growing back nicely, and her latest scan had come back clean. "Really happy, not fake happy." "I am," I told her. Turns out, cutting off dead weight works for relationships too, not just cancer. She laughed at that, and I realized that was something else I'd gotten back, my sense of humor. Not sarcasm as a defense mechanism, but actual, genuine laughter. Life without Tara wasn't perfect, but it was mine, and that made all the difference. The 30-day deadline I'd given Tara was approaching fast, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't counting down the days like a kid waiting for Christmas. Not because I was eager for confrontation. I'm not a sadist, despite what Tara's Instagram stories might suggest, but because I was ready for this chapter to officially close. I wanted my apartment back, my peace back, and most importantly, my spare key back, because I was about 90% sure she'd made copies. Day 28 came and went. Silence. Day 29, still nothing. I started to think maybe she'd be reasonable about this, pack her stuff quietly, arrange a time when I wasn't home, and we could both move on like adults who'd simply realized they weren't compatible. Then day 30 arrived, and with it, the sound of a diesel engine idling outside my apartment building at 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning. I looked out the window and saw a U-Haul truck, one of the big ones, like she was moving a 4-bedroom house instead of her half of a 2-bedroom apartment, parked at an angle that blocked 3 other parking spots. Standing next to it was Tara, wearing athleisure like she was about to run a marathon, and behind her was a group of approximately 8 guys who looked like they'd been promised pizza and beer in exchange for manual labor. I recognized exactly 0 of them. Not Dylan the fitness warrior, not any of her friends' boyfriends, not anyone from her life that I'd ever met. These were straight-up randoms, probably pulled from some Help Me Move app or the parking lot of a Home Depot. I buzzed them up because, honestly, what else was I going to do? This was happening whether I wanted it to or not, and at least this way I could supervise and make sure she didn't try to take my stuff along with hers. When I opened the door, Tara swept in like she was making a grand entrance at a movie premiere. "These are my friends helping me move," she announced, gesturing to the confused-looking crew behind her. One guy was wearing a tank top that said "Sun's out, guns out," despite it being October and 50 degrees outside. Another looked like he'd just woken up and was seriously regretting his life choices. "Your friends?" I repeated slowly. "You expect me to believe you're friends with—" I counted them. 8 random dudes? "Yes, Julian," she snapped. "I have friends. Just because you're a hermit doesn't mean everyone else is." Tank top guy leaned over to his buddy and whispered, "Yo, are we getting paid for this or what?" She said $50 each and lunch. The other guy whispered back, $50. She was paying them $50 each to help her move. That's $400 she somehow had, which was interesting considering she couldn't afford a security deposit on an apartment or her own phone plan, but could apparently finance a moving crew. "All right," I said, stepping aside. "Let's make this quick. Tara, you can take everything that's yours. I've already separated your stuff into the guest room to make this easier." Her eyes narrowed. "How generous of you." I thought so. What followed was the most chaotic moving operation I've ever witnessed, and I once helped my cousin move out of a 5th-floor walk-up during a heat wave. Tara directed her friends with the organizational skills of someone who'd never actually moved before, which, to be fair, she probably hadn't since I'd always been the one handling logistics. "That lamp," she pointed. "Take that." "That's my lamp," I said. "I bought it at IKEA before I met you. But it matches my aesthetic." "Your aesthetic is not a legal claim to ownership." One of the guys, a shorter dude with a mustache that looked like it was still trying to figure out what it wanted to be when it grew up, picked up my PlayStation. "This too?" he asked Tara. "Yes." "Absolutely not," I said, taking it from him. "That's mine. I've had it for 4 years. But I used it sometimes." "Using something doesn't make it yours, Tara. Otherwise, you'd own half of Sephora." Tank top guy laughed at that, then tried to cover it with a cough when Tara glared at him. This went on for about 45 minutes. Every item became a negotiation. The coffee maker? Mine. The throw pillows? Hers. Thank God, because they were extremely uncomfortable and purely decorative. The kitchen knives? Mine. And also I wasn't about to let her walk out with sharp objects given her current mental state. The decorative letters that spelled "Live, Laugh, Love" on the wall? Hers. And I would have paid her to take them faster. Then she tried to take the TV. "Tara, I have the receipt for that TV. It's in my email. From Amazon. Purchased with my credit card. 2 years ago. But we watched it together. That's not how ownership works. You can't just claim community property because you sat on my couch and watched The Bachelor." Mustache guy set the TV down. "Ma'am, if he's got the receipt, that's his TV. Whose side are you on?" Tara shrieked. "The side of not getting involved in whatever this is," he muttered. Finally, mercifully, her stuff was loaded into the U-Haul. Boxes of clothes, shoes, makeup, all those candles she never burned, her vision boards, enough hair products to stock a salon, and approximately 4 dozen decorative pillows that served no purpose except making the couch impossible to actually sit on comfortably. I thought we were done. I really did. I was already mentally planning my celebration, probably just ordering a pizza and watching a movie without someone commenting on my basic taste in cinema, when Tara turned to me with this look that I can only describe as unhinged determination. "I'm taking the couch," she declared. "You're not taking the couch. I picked it out, and I paid for it, with my money, that I earned, at my job." I pulled out my phone and showed her the credit card statement. "See, right there. March 15th, 2023, $1,200. My name, my card." She stared at the statement, and I could see the gears turning in her head, trying to find some angle, some argument that would work. Then her face changed, and I recognized that expression. It was the same one she'd worn when she wanted something and knew she couldn't argue for it logically, so she'd shift strategies entirely. "Fine," she said coldly. "Keep your stupid couch. Keep everything. But you're going to regret this, Julian." "I really don't think I will." That's when she pulled out her phone and called 911. I blinked. "Are you seriously?" "Yes. I need to report a theft," she said into the phone, her voice suddenly shaky and scared, like she was auditioning for a Lifetime movie. "My husband is stealing my belongings. She gave my address. The 8 random guys exchanged glances that clearly said, "We are not getting paid enough for this." Tank top guy raised his hand like he was in class. We're gonna go. No. I need witnesses. Tara shouted. Lady, I don't even know your last name, mustache guy said. I responded to an ad that said, help me move. Cash paid. This is way above my pay grade. One of the other guys, who hadn't said a word the entire time, muttered something in Spanish that sounded like Senora Loca and headed for the stairs. Within 30 seconds, all 8 of them had abandoned ship, leaving Tara alone with her phone and her rapidly crumbling narrative. The cops showed up about 20 minutes later. 2 officers, one older guy who looked like he'd seen everything twice and was tired of seeing it again, and a younger woman who seemed like she was trying very hard not to laugh. Someone called about a theft? The older officer said, looking between me and Tara. Yes. Tara jumped in before I could speak. He's stealing my things. This is domestic theft. Financial abuse. The officer looked at me. Sir, what's your side? I held up the lease. This is my apartment. Only my name on it. She was staying here. I asked her to leave 30 days ago. She's removing her belongings. I have receipts for everything I own. Did you hit her? He asked. No. Threaten her? No. I asked her to leave and gave her 30 days notice. That's it. He turned to Tara. Ma'am, did he hit you? No, but did he threaten you? Not physically, but emotionally. Did he prevent you from taking your belongings? Well, no, but he won't let me take. Ma'am, the younger officer interrupted, and I could hear the exhaustion in her voice. If your name's not on the lease, and he didn't threaten you, and you've taken your belongings, then there's no crime here. That's just consequences. Tara's face went red. Consequences? Consequences? He ruined my life. No, ma'am, the older officer said, closing his notepad. He just stopped funding it. There's a difference. They left. Tara stood there in the hallway, surrounded by nothing, having lost her audience, her leverage, and apparently her mind. You're going to regret this, she screamed as I closed the door. You'll see. You'll come crawling back. Through the door, I heard her continue yelling. Something about karma and revenge and how I'd never find anyone better. I turned around and looked at my apartment. My couch, my TV, my PlayStation, my space, my peace. And then I laughed. Not a small chuckle, but a full, deep, from-the-belly laugh that probably made Tara even angrier outside. I laughed so hard my abs hurt, which meant I was basically getting a workout from watching my marriage collapse. Best exercise routine I never paid for. A month and a half after the U-Haul showdown, I was living my best life. And I don't mean that in the fake Instagram influencer way where you're actually miserable, but the lighting's good. I mean genuinely, authentically, sleeping through the night without anxiety kind of living. My apartment had never been cleaner, mostly because I was the only one living in it, and I actually put things away instead of leaving them wherever they landed. The fridge was stocked with food I actually ate. No more $12 organic protein smoothie mixes that expired untouched. No more overpriced gluten-free bread that tasted like cardboard but photographed well. Just regular groceries for a regular guy who'd finally figured out that basic was actually pretty great. I'd gotten really good at making pasta. Like, legitimately good. Marco from the cooking class said I had natural instincts with dough, which might be the best compliment I'd ever received. I'd started inviting people over for dinner. Marcus and Keisha, my cousin Derek, even my mom once she was feeling strong enough to make the drive, and everyone agreed that my carbonara was restaurant quality. Turns out, when you're not spending all your energy managing someone else's emotions, you have bandwidth for hobbies. Work was going well. I'd gotten a promotion at my software engineering job, partly because I was actually focused again instead of distracted by the constant low-level stress of wondering what financial crisis Tara would create next. My boss, Jennifer, had even commented that I seemed more present in meetings, which was corporate speak for "you're not dead behind the eyes anymore." I'd redecorated the apartment. Nothing crazy. I'm still the same guy who bought his couch because it was comfortable, not because it matched an aesthetic, but I'd added some plants, hung up some artwork I actually liked instead of the inspirational quote prints Tara had insisted on, and turned the guest room into a proper home office. It felt like my space for the first time in years. And then, on a random Tuesday evening while I was testing a new recipe for cacio e pepe, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Julian, it's Tara. My phone broke. This is temporary." I stared at the message. The number wasn't in my contacts because I deleted hers after the U-Haul incident, but I recognized the area code. I should have blocked it immediately. That would have been the smart play. But curiosity is a powerful thing, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't at least a little bit interested in what had prompted her to reach out after 6 weeks of silence. Another message came through. Can we talk? I didn't respond. I went back to my pasta, grated some fresh Parmesan, plated it with the kind of care I'd learned from Marco, and sat down to eat. My phone buzzed 3 more times during dinner. I ignored it. After I'd finished eating, cleaned my dishes, immediately, like a functional adult, and poured myself a glass of wine, I finally picked up my phone. The messages were a journey. Julian, I'm sorry. I see now how wrong I was. I've had time to think about everything, and I realize I took you for granted. You were right about everything. I was entitled and selfish. I miss you. Can we please talk? I sat there on my couch, the one she tried to take, the one that was now mine in both legal ownership and spiritual peace, and took a long sip of my wine. Part of me wanted to respond, to tell her exactly what I thought about her sudden epiphany now that she was apparently living in a situation that required a temporary phone. But a bigger part of me, the part that had grown over the past 2 months, recognized that responding at all would just reopen a door I'd worked very hard to close. So I didn't reply. Instead, I did something that felt infinitely more satisfying. I got up, went to my bedroom, and pulled out a box from my closet. Inside was the handwritten letter I'd given Tara for our last anniversary. The one she'd mocked at brunch. The one she told Bree and Marla was cute but basic and couldn't be posted on Instagram. I kept it because even after everything, I wanted to remember that I'd tried, that I'd been genuine, that my love had been real, even if hers hadn't been. I took it to a framing shop the next day. The woman behind the counter, probably mid-50s with reading glasses on a chain and a kind smile, asked if it was for a gift. No, I said. It's a reminder. Of someone special? Of who I was before someone convinced me I wasn't enough. She looked at the letter through the glass of the counter, didn't read it, just saw the careful handwriting, the multiple pages, the obvious effort. Whoever received this was lucky, she said. Not everyone gets love letters anymore. She didn't think so. Then she was an idiot. She looked up at me over her glasses. You want a nice frame for this? Something that'll last. The nicest you have. A week later, I hung that framed letter in my home office. Not as a shrine to Tara or to our failed marriage, but as a reminder that being sensitive, being willing to write your feelings down, to be vulnerable, to care, wasn't a weakness. It was actually the thing that made me human in a world that increasingly rewarded people who treated others like disposable commodities. Around that same time, I met Leah. She was a teacher at an elementary school, and we met in the most mundane, unromantic comedy way possible, at the grocery store. I was in the pasta aisle, shocking, I know, trying to decide between 2 brands of fettuccine, and she was next to me doing the same thing. The Delalo brand is better, she said without looking up. Better texture, holds sauce better. Yeah. I grabbed a box. You cook a lot. I try to. Teaching 3rd graders all day makes me want to do something mindful when I get home. Cooking helps. We talked for maybe 10 minutes right there in the pasta aisle. She was funny without being mean. Smart without being condescending. She had flour on her jeans from a baking project with her class, and when I pointed it out, she laughed instead of getting embarrassed. I asked for her number. She gave it to me. We got coffee the next weekend, and when I told her I'd been learning to make fresh pasta, her eyes lit up like I'd just told her I won the lottery. That's so cool. Most guys I meet can barely microwave ramen. Well, I can microwave ramen and make pasta from scratch. I'm basically a Renaissance man. She laughed, a real laugh, not the performative kind Tara used to do when she was trying to seem charming for an audience. Our second date was at my apartment. I made her cacio e pepe, and she brought wine and told me about her students with the kind of genuine affection that made it clear she actually loved her job. When she saw the framed letter on my office wall, she asked about it. I told her the whole story. Not to trauma dump or make her feel bad, just honestly. About the brunch, the breakup, the Instagram drama, all of it. I figured if it was going to scare her off, better to find out sooner rather than later. That letter is beautiful, she said when I finished. Handwritten notes are romantic. I still have every card my grandpa ever gave my grandma. They meant something because he took the time. That's what I thought. Her loss, Leah said simply. Then she smiled. Also, this pasta deserves 5 stars. I'm not even exaggerating. This is restaurant quality. We've been dating for a month now, and it was easy in a way I'd forgotten relationships could be. She paid for dates sometimes. I paid for dates sometimes. We split things. We communicated. She thought my sensitivity was a positive trait, not a character flaw to mock at brunch. My mom loved her. Marcus loved her. Even Dr. Chun, my therapist, said I seemed notably lighter since meeting her, which I took as professional approval. Tara texted a few more times over the following weeks. Each message a variation of, "I'm sorry," or "I miss you," or "I made a mistake." I never responded. Not out of cruelty, but because there was simply nothing left to say. She'd made her choices, and I'd made mine. I heard through the gossip chain, Marcus to Keisha to Dana to Marla, that Tara was living in a sketchy apartment on the edge of town, the kind of place where the lock on the front door was more of a suggestion than a security feature. Apparently, she had roommates now, 3 of them, all strangers from Craigslist, and they were exactly as reliable as you'd expect from people who needed a roommate immediately with no notice. The roaches were free, though, so that was something. Dylan the fitness warrior had apparently moved on to a different Instagram model wannabe, leaving Tara single, broke, and finally facing the consequences of thinking the world owed her a lifestyle she never earned. One Saturday morning, I was making breakfast, French toast, because I'd conquered pasta and was moving on to other culinary frontiers, when Leah came into the kitchen wearing one of my old college t-shirts and her hair in a messy bun. "Morning," she said, kissing my cheek. "That smells amazing. Wait until you taste it." She sat at the counter, watching me cook with this soft smile that made my chest feel warm. "You know what I love about you? My incredible modesty?" She laughed. "That too. But mainly, you're just genuine. You care about things. You put effort into stuff. You're sensitive in the best possible way. I've been told that's a character flaw. By an idiot," she said, echoing the frame shop lady. "Being sensitive means you're paying attention. It means you care. The world needs more of that, not less." I plated the French toast, added fresh berries and real maple syrup, not the fake stuff, and sat down next to her. "So yes," I said, more to myself than to her, "I am sensitive. Sensitive to peace. Sensitive to laughter. Sensitive to being treated with basic human respect. And I'm deeply, profoundly allergic to funding my own disrespect." Leah raised her orange juice. "I'll drink to that." We clinked glasses, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be.